Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Buddhist Biohacker. My name is Lisa Gunshore, your host and mystic guide, and I am here with the amazing Julie Hoyle. Welcome back, Julie.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you.
Yes, and we are on our third episode of our three-part series. So this is the final episode talking about the shadow side of resilience. So for the last two episodes, we have really talked about the cost of being the strong one. Like, what is that cost of, overgiving and overcommitting and pushing through things even when they're hard? And I'm really excited because we're going to talk today about really the tools to start to navigate this so you can start to make a change in your life. And then we're going to be back next month to talk about all of the gifts of resilience, because there's all these incredible things that come from it. So yeah, Julie, where should we start today? Where do we want to start with just how do we get it? We get it. We're overworked. We're overtired. We're doing too much. We need a change. Where do we go from here?
Well, one of the things I would say is a great starting point is to just notice what's happening in your body, because, the age-old saying, your body never lies, is absolutely true. If we're trying to be resilient and we're trying to battle through and, put a brave face on things, our real feelings towards what's happening will show up in the body, either with headaches, migraines, not being able to sleep, weight gain, weight loss, you name it. These things just show up as a way of getting our attention. And I know we're all familiar with that, right?
Oh, totally.
Usually, I can speak to that. Usually with me, what happens is I have a loss of appetite. I can't eat. I start to feel frazzled. I wake up in the middle of the night, and I just generally feel a bit shitty all over. And, and then if that kind of continues, then there'll be something else that shows up that's a bit more, it's a bit bigger, and is kind of knocking on the door for me to pay attention. Which is why, all of that said, it's really, really important to pay attention to what's happening in one's body, rather than trying to bypass, to meditate it away or to do the practices or kind of distract through other things. So that's, I think, the really the best starting point. Just what is happening in your body. Do you have a lot of vitality and energy? Or do you feel depressed, down, defeated, sluggish? You want to just sit in front of the television, waste time, and eat junk food, and so all of those things really speak to what's going on at a deeper level.
Absolutely, yeah. I really relate to the term numbing out, and I know my pattern too is like I'll sit and watch a series over and over. Just sitting, and it's like you can't, the productivity goes down. And I've definitely hurt myself. So for those of you out there, like I've either gotten sick or I've fallen and hurt myself. I've done that a few times over the years. So yeah, if you're not paying attention, the messages get louder and louder until you finally listen. That's kind of how it works. And so, yeah, it's important to do that. And I think, once you start to notice, it does feel like an awakening, doesn't it, Julie? I feel like whenever it's like, I come out of it and I look in the mirror and I'm like, whoa, like, I don't think I've actually looked in the mirror at myself, even though maybe you did, but it's different. There's a different energy for sure.
Yes. Speaking about the body showing signs and symptoms and all of that, I can speak to trying to continue on, again, with a work theme. The work themes seem to be really common in my story, in my life. But some years ago, I think at least 10, 12 years or something ago, I started to get severe pain in my right shoulder, and then realized when I did follow up with the doctor that I had what was called frozen shoulder. And I'd never even heard of it. I didn't know such a thing existed, actually. But I went straight away. I went to, what is the kind of the energetic component. And I realized again, I was carrying a lot of weight on my shoulders, and it was pissing me off. And so, it was a great, very direct way that my body was speaking to me. And so I was then able to sort of take heed and start doing the things that I had been avoiding doing. Because that's usually the pattern with most people. They would rather avoid doing, what they're being called to, because sometimes it can be really challenging, right? Whether it's a relationship or work-related issue or health issue, it's often easier to try and just ignore it and carry on. And then these things happen.
Absolutely. I think the parasites is a great example of mine. I think I've had plenty of parasitic energies feeding off of me. And that was a big health crisis. And I really wasn't sure for a while what was even wrong with me. And, when you start to look at the symbolism behind parasites and that parasitic energy and allowing other people to host off of your energy, that was a really direct line of sight into what was happening in my relationships at the time and going through a divorce at the time and all of that. And so, our bodies really do tell us what's going on, and we have to listen to them. And I think I want to share, I learned from you, and you've written several books, and one of them, of course, goes deep into the shadow. And I learned from you, to start asking those questions. How is this serving me? And what do I learn from this? And those have stuck with me all of these years and are in my book, Enlightenment Pie, as a reminder of, we want to start asking the questions. What is going on that my body's shutting down? And a lot of times it comes from an over resilience energy, where you're pushing yourself through and operating in survival mode, or being hyper independent, where you never need help from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one, chronic overfunctioning. And one of the questions that came up when I was writing up the notes was, where am I operating out of survival instead of trust? And that really sticks out to me, because I think trust is really hard, Julie.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a bit of a sticking point for most people. I mean, I have to say, I haven't found it that difficult. For some reason, I've been blessed ever since I was a kid with this really deep, it even goes further than trust. This is absolute knowing that what I'm receiving intuitively is authentic, and I trust the place from which it arises from, rather than the kind of the fear-based thoughts that go around in the mind. So, for example, if I get a prompt to do something, I'll just do it immediately, even if I don't know what I'm doing. So that's always served me really well. But I do understand via the people that I've worked with that trusting, that a deeper calling, and especially if it's requiring, a fairly big step, like, quitting a job or moving away or closing a relationship or creating a new one, can be difficult for some people. And I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say about that. But I think it's a fairly common issue.
Well, yeah, I think it's hard to trust ourselves more so than even the step we know we need to take is, can I take the step, and what's going to happen? And there's lots of you watching, and would love to hear who's on, and also if you want to jump into this conversation, please do. And I think, trust is I'll share this little story if we want. Trust is my fourth step in my 4-step framework in Enlightenment Pie. And I laughed because it's the one thing I didn't write about when I published the first edition of my book, because I think I wasn't there. And while I still have a lot of work to do, I feel on trust. What I wrote about when I did the second edition was the sand mandala. And I had a direct experience with this at the Kala Chakra in Washington, D.C., and it was so incredibly profound to watch. There was 5 or 6 lamas every single day for 9 days creating the Kala Chakra sand mandala. I mean, it was this very ornate, beautiful, it was in this, they had like a gazebo on stage, and they were in the gazebo, like making this sand mandala. And the last day of the initiation, His Holiness walked over to the sand mandala when he had finished his morning teaching, and he took his hand and swiped it across the sand mandala. And it was just this moment of like, oh my God, like it's one thing to see it on a video, but live in person after everything that had happened in those 10 days was like, your heart kind of like starts racing, like, oh my God, what is this? And we all had the opportunity. There was like 30,000 of us at this Verizon Center, but we all got in a big line. And for the whole afternoon, we got to walk by and everybody could take some sand from the sand mandala. And so that's what I wrote about for trust, because I think, and you and I both are unique, I think, in that we have created things that we've dissolved.
Yes.
And so that always inspires me, you know, for those of you listening, when you're thinking of taking a step that requires collapse or shifting, that's always kept me brave, is the sand mandala, because it's like you can create things, and if it's time to let it go, it's time to let it go and release it, and something more comes from it, you know, later. But it's hard to trust that. It's hard to understand. For years, I was upset that I was single. And, you know, now I'd give anything to be quiet by myself in a clean house for a day, you know? And so it's just kind of a funny thing. It's like we always want something else, and we're afraid to take those steps. And we don't always see where we're really going on the other side of things. So it's just the sand mandala is a powerful one. I should put one in my office. I should put up a picture of it. They're so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have a great story. I think that is really relevant to what we're sharing here, which relates to it relates to you, Lisa. So I'm trying to remember when it was, but I think it was around 2010 or 12. It was a few years after you and I met and started kind of working together. At the time, you know, I'd been prompted to do readings, life purpose readings, and, you know, energy work and kind of shamanic readings and all of those things. But I didn't have a website. I think I just had a blog, actually. And I'm not even sure how people found me. But anyway, I remember...
Oh, we found you.
Yeah.
Word spread.
Yes. So I remember I was in the UK for Christmas, and I was just finishing up a session with a lady, you know, via a telephone call. And she said to me, Julie, that was so amazing. I'm really, really glad I found you. Thank you so much. I'm going to spread the word, because the work you're doing is, you know, incredible. Do you have a website? And I said, actually, no, I've heard that before. I don't have a website, because quite honestly, I don't know where to start with. Anyway, so we finished the call, and honestly, I could not sleep that night. There was so much energy in what she'd said to me, and I recognized that it was a call to action. So I got back to Grand Bahama. I literally got an email, and I did say to the universe, okay, if you want me to create a website, I need some help, because I don't have a bloody clue how to do a website. so you know, I need help. So and I knew intuitively, I just knew the help would be there. That's always the way it works. So of course, what happened was, as soon as I landed back on Grand Bahama, you sent me an email. You said to me, it might be a good idea for you to have a website. I'm creating one via Homestead, I think was the name of the platform.
Oh, that's OG.
Yes. So you said to me, you should check it out. So it's like, this is the sign, this is it. So I went straight on, signed up, had my first 3 months for free, and started, you know, via their templates, creating this website. And it's always been that way, you know, for me, in terms of, you know, when I've been prompted to do things. It's like the right person shows up, or a book shows up or some kind of guidance shows up, and I just follow it and away I go. And I know you do the same, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really, when it comes to things like that, it absolutely, it's you just say yes and you figure it out. And I'm blessed. Like, technology hasn't been too bad for you and me. I think we have some kind of blessing in that realm, a boon around technology. But I think sometimes it's the hardest step for anyone to take when they're starting a new business, especially, is how do I even do all of these things? And I'm still sharing, right? I'm sure you are too. I'm still sharing with people, oh, try this and try that, and do this for this. And then I heard, somebody just recently told me about Substack, so I'm getting on there. So like, there's always, and maybe that's it, Julie, when I get goosebumps. Maybe the trust is more about being willing to be vulnerable, because you have to do things that, in order to expand, you have to be vulnerable. You have to do things you've never done before that you may not be an expert in. And I think there's somebody in my mind right now that I know she won't do anything that isn't familiar to her.
Wow.
And so she's in this limited space where she's living where she's comfortable. She works where she's comfortable. She wants her children to do what she's comfortable with. And it just narrows the scope. I never would have seen the Dalai Lama in person. Like, when I wrote you and you said, oh, create an intention to meet him. And if I would have been like, oh, that's crazy, and never done anything. And I was like, sure. Okay.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I'll write it. And I ended up meeting, like, to me, I think that's it, is being willing to be vulnerable, which is part of this whole resilience conversation. Is vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength.
Yes.
And it's also truth with a capital T, sattva,
Yes.
like, truth is vulnerability, because you don't have to know everything and be everything and do everything. And that, I think, when you get to that place, is when you can say, I honestly can't do all of this anymore. Like,
yes.
I can't. So either people accept that I can't, or they don't accept it. Right?
Yes. 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 And look, an important part of all of that is it's the mind that wants safety. It's the mind that wants to know, the egoic mind, right? Yes. Whereas the intuitive self, the supreme self, source itself, is comfortable in not knowing and going with the flow of grace, and being open to what you're being called to. And one of the things that I can say hand on heart is that when I get a prompt to do something, whether it's write a book, create a website, whatever it is, I honestly do not give a rat's ass if I fall on my face, if I look like an idiot, if it fails spectacularly. I don't care. What I do care about is that I follow that call, that inner prompt, that directive, that I really feel deeply, because for me, it's like serving God, it's serving the whole, it's honoring that truth, that gift of truth that has landed in me. And that to me is the greatest wealth. And so it doesn't matter what it looks like, even if it terrifies me, half out my mind, I'll just, because it doesn't matter how awake you are, how aligned with source you are. Obviously, the body, the mind functions, fear can come up, but I try not to pay any attention to it, because the truth of who I am is beyond all of that. It's prior to all of that. And again, I can share another story. I remember just before, just as the pandemic was kicking off, and this idea in you landed to create an online retreat, right? I remember clearly you sent me an email inviting me to present. And I was thinking it was a one-off. And I said to you, and you said it would be live. And I was thinking, holy moly, I've never done anything like that before. As a contemplative, it was a bit kind of anxiety provoking. But there was so much Shakti, there was so much energy in your email. I took that straight away. I didn't even skip a beat. As soon as I got your email, I went straight to my puja, my altar space. I did my prayers and I asked, this is the invitation. Do you want me to do it? And the answer was, yes, we need your help. So I just straight away, responded, said, yes, I'm up for it. Let's do it. And I was thinking it would be a one-off, right?
Hundreds of videos later.
Yeah.
And their own YouTube channel.
And the thing is, I had anticipated it would be like this one-off thing, and I thought that I would be fairly uncomfortable, but I absolutely, from the minute I started sharing and speaking, I love it. I absolutely love it. It feels really intimate. It's absolutely direct. It's a fantastic way to share this awakened energy, and it feels really important to do it. So, of course, I'm loving it. But again, there's freedom in it, because if I'm told to close it down tomorrow, I will.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will. So, these are great examples of, again, not having anything figured out, because I'm sure you didn't know what the heck you were doing. You just had this idea. You said, let me try it. Let me see if it works. Let me ask these people. I'm sure not everybody said yes as well.
Oh, yeah. It was a wild, honestly, when we die and we have our life review, I can't wait to watch that all again, because right? Because it was really wild. I mean, it was kind of like, I think I need to have like some kind of online support. And I emailed a few of you that I knew, and you were like the first person I emailed. Oh, I love this. Jason. Oh, we love Jason.
Yeah,
Thanks
we do.
for saying yes. So many of us found you both during that time with great benefit. Oh, thank you, Jason. So
Beautiful.
happy you're here. I love your energy. But it was just wild, because we did that first show on the shadow. So
Yes.
By the way, for all of you listening right now, go back and watch it, because I actually watched it again recently, and I was like, God, the Shakti and that is just so good. But it was like, I created the YouTube channel. So this is even crazy. Let's talk about saying yes. Buddhist Biohacker came into my mind in November of 2019, around my birthday. And I created a YouTube channel with that title, but I did nothing. I was like, I don't know anything about YouTube. My kids watch YouTube. I don't know. And then 4 months later, the pandemic starts, and I'm like, oh, I think I can use this YouTube channel. Well, then I went to upload our Zooms. I think the first ones we did were on Zoom, and it took forever. So then it was like, oh, well, we can go live with Zoom. I mean, it was just,
yes,
it just happened, and people got on board, and so many people wanted to join. And it really was an incredible moment in time. And, what's interesting, Julie, is I've had this channel kind of sitting dormant the last year, not really feeling it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And the prompt I got was to reach out to you to do this series. And here we are. And it was like, this felt like a prompt to say yes to get back on here and to bring that energy back and to see where it is evolving to.
Yes.
And so I'm so grateful to you for saying yes again to me and coming back on here, because it's just, even these 3 shows have just filled me up, and it's a reminder of who I am. It's a reminder of the work we do. And for all of you watching, it's a reminder of who you are and where we've come in 5 years. I mean, 5 years since we came onto this channel and
Yes.
had these discussions, and we're having the same discussions, which is do your shadow work. And I think when you can start to unravel the denial of the self and the self-loathing and all of those things, that's when it becomes easier to say yes, because you're not like wrapped up in all of it. And I still get caught up in that. There's been a couple opportunities that I wish I would have listened to those prompts. But there are a lot of things that I just do because I know I'm supposed to do it. And
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense, but you just do it. And it's just so important to say yes and to have that vulnerability and to trust that you're going to be safe and you don't have to control everything or stay in one lane. Because I see a lot of folks thinking they just couldn't. Well, I keep thinking I'm going to write a book. How many times have you heard that, Julie, from somebody? It's like, well, go do it. Just do it.
or there's this kind of great fiery starting energy. They start with it, right? And then it just sits on a back shelf, and nothing's done with it.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this many times before, but it's just easy to bypass your sort of your inner knowing, your intuitive, messages in favor of what feels more safe, and really and truly, it's no way to live. It's like being dead. It's like going through the motions and not really living your life because you're not learning anything. Safety's
Yeah.
okay. I think, many people we all go through periods where we're like, oh, let me just kind of coast a bit here,
Yes.
but it's boring, and there's no growth. There's absolutely no growth there at all. So I would invite any viewer who is kind of resonating with what we're saying to look at the things that you've been prompted to do, but you've just kind of shoved to the back for a while. Because it won't, when it's authentic, it won't go away. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have, an idea will land. You think, oh, that'd be great, but it kind of falls to the wayside after a while. But anything that just keeps knocking on your door and keeps, landing and telling you and prompting you, there's something there that's big that is worth looking at.
I agree. And I think it's really important for all of you who journal, if you don't start, but save them. What you're saying, Julie, I go through my journals for just a couple years back. I have them all, but at least I would say I have them all since about 2009. But it's really interesting because I have a lot of ideas and I actually save my planners too. And so, for example, I'm kind of like refreshing my practice with clients. And I actually started going through those planners and journals, and God, there were some ideas I wrote like 25 times. And so I actually just recently went through and made a list of like, here's the 10 things like I wrote a lot that need to happen. And a couple of them are books that I still haven't written. And so it's really powerful what you're saying is like, it's okay to pick it up and dust it off and say, what am I going to do with this? Because I think that was part of what happened, during COVID for me with YouTube was I had decided I was going to finish every project I ever started. And that included my books, it included movies, it included all these things I wanted to do. And I am still 5 years later working through some of those projects, but I'm getting them done. 2 books are out, stuff is done, certifications are complete that I had paid for that I never finished, like all that stuff. And it's just really awesome to like start to complete all of these things you thought you wanted to do or you got prompts to do, and to start and to see where it evolves and where it takes you to that next place. And that also comes from the just trusting and doing it and believing in the intuition, the prompts coming up within you, because even our dreams, I have a lot of prophetic dreams, and as weird as it is, I text or email everyone I dream about when I dream about it for the most part. And it is really, really scary. I've had a couple dreams, scary because I could be wrong or I could be cuckoo. And I had a dream about a guy that I had on my show who wasn't a great guest really, but I had a dream about him and he was having issues with his book. And I actually emailed him and said, hey, I had this dream. Here's what happened. Here's the message. And he wrote me back and he was like, oh my God, how in the world did you know? I am struggling with this. And thank you for the message and blah, blah, blah. And the more we do that, the more it happens, I think, don't you?
Yes.
The more we honor those messages, the more they happen. And I feel so grateful every time I have a dream like that. It's like, oh wow, like I always think, like I joke that like I must be doing something right because I'm in that flow and I'm receiving that information. And so it's important for us to like honor all of these prompts even in our dreams.
Yes. Yeah, oh, absolutely 100%. I mean, I have the same thing. I'll have a dream about somebody that I haven't thought of for years and years, or of somebody that I don't know that well. Just as one example, I mean, I remember having a lucid dream about a woman that I'd met at an ashram in upstate New York. And somehow there was a mutual friend that knew, that she had her contact details. So I sent her an email to say, listen, I had this dream about you. And the dream was very, very vivid. And there was a lot of Shakti in it. And it was about her teaching yoga that had an astrology kind of component in it. And I said, I see a book. And I was shown, all these kind of, at the time it was CDs and stuff like that. But, this whole kind of package that related to astrology and yoga. I don't know what this means. I didn't know anything about, what she did work-wise. So, like your story, she wrote me back and she said, oh my God, I've been studying yoga and I've been studying astrology and I've had this idea to put the two together. And I'm currently working on, presenting workshops. Anyway, it kicked off she said it felt like my email and dream was a confirmation for her to really stand behind it, to launch it. And she did very, very well. I don't know whether she's still doing it, but she was doing very well with it. So, and I could have easily just said, oh, I'm too busy. I haven't got the time to send an email to give this person this dream message. But I do it every time. It doesn't matter how busy I am. If I have a lucid dream and a message for someone, or if I hear something, if I'm in the food store or I'm doing something and I get this message to share with the person, then I will.
Mm-hmm. And those are, we're already shifting to our next series, which is about the gifts, but that is the gifts of being resilient and strong. And the resilience isn't about the being over resilient and pushing through something. The resilience comes from making it through difficult times with compassion and an open heart and vulnerability. And when you do that, then these profound things occur. Then these incredible openings happen that change your entire life. I was not a Buddhist. I did not know anything about Buddhism or Tibet or the politics or anything. Julie, I volunteered because I was raised in the Catholic Church. So we always, right? I volunteered, but I'd never, ever been an activist or anything. Just to be honest with everybody, it wasn't my thing. And here I was, divorced at 30 years old. And I went and did that. I signed up to do 2 weeks of volunteer work at this college chakra in Washington, D.C., which I'd never been to. So I went to this place I'd never been to. I was taking transit I'd never been on, was working for Tibetans that I didn't speak the language. It changed my life. And it's not just because I have a bell and a dorja on my desk over here. What it did for me was it reinforced that you can say yes. And when we talk about resilience too, I had just come out of the parasites. I could barely walk when I got to Washington, D.C. I had no money. I was trying to eat healthy and just do the volunteer meals. It was a humbling experience, and it required me to be vulnerable. It directed me to put everything I knew about life aside to be in that space. And the gift was I got to be around His Holiness 3 times, one time to meet him and was up against his robes on a bleacher for a picture. And it just, those moments, that's life. That's it. There's no reason to be here other than those moments. And that doesn't come from pushing so hard that you miss the opportunity and you don't even hear it or see it because you're so exhausted and you're pushing.
Yes. And trying to fulfill your worldly, what we could call worldly, even though it's one, energy.
Yeah.
But for telling yourself you have to fulfill your worldly obligations and keep, overextending at work and doing all the things really that don't mean that much. Rather than honoring your intuitive knowing, giving yourself time to reflect and contemplate and to be in nature and to open to the grace of the universe, however that shows up for you, whether it's, through a bird, seeing a bird, or a feather landing at your feet, or whatever it is. But, it's just so easy to forget that source itself is always trying to get your attention in whatever way is kind of the most accessible for you, But it's just easy to keep, spinning in the mind all the time, feeling like you're the one figuring everything out, trying to sort of track, manage, and monitor everything, rather than just relaxing and letting go, and knowing that you'll be taken care of, and trusting your own inner knowing, and living from that place and speaking from that place.
Yeah. Here's Hope. Hope, welcome back. You two took me through the pandemic and changed my life forever. Thank you, Hope. Thank you so much. And I just saw her in person a couple of days ago, and she's doing so good. So thank you for being a part of the community. And I think, yes, it's if we are overdoing it, then we miss the most important things that could be happening right in front of our face. And I think that's the real thing. And it's not as simple as like slowing down. It's not exactly that. It's more like, it really is about becoming the Purusha, stepping back and becoming the witness and being able to see yourself. And that's when you look in the mirror as the witness and say, oh, what's going on there? I've been completely neglecting my body, and I was not even thinking about it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's just so easy to get on that track, and completely forget what's important in life. Because, following and listening to your intuitive guidance, living true to that, that's really where the magic and the wonder is, the mystery is, the opportunities are there too. And it might be scary, but I wouldn't live any other way. And I think part of the vulnerability as well is admitting that you don't know anything, you don't know what you're doing, you haven't got a clue, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that there'll be support there if you need support, as and when you need support, and that always shows up. Every time it shows up.
It does. It does. And the synchronicity will happen and things fall into place, and it just all clicks, and suddenly everything makes sense.
Yeah. And also the other thing I wanted to bring up was, if you're prompted to do something, as we shared, writing a book, creating a website or a blog, or, whatever it is, you don't have to do everything yourself. You know what I mean? You can outsource. I mean, I recently found the most amazing woman. I don't even know how I found her, actually, but, she does all the ebook and paperback formatting for me, because I don't have any interest in doing any of that. I like obviously doing the writing part, but especially doing the HTML and all of that you have to do for ebooks and, all of those things. It just isn't my thing. But anyway, I found this lady, and she's just been absolutely amazing, timely, very affordable, and it just works. And what you're doing then is you're sharing your gifts. So, for her, it's a resource. I'm a resource for her, right? Because I'm paying her to do the things that I don't want to do. Yeah. So it doesn't always have to be this kind of momentous thing. And I think that's part of the reason a lot of people start books and don't finish them, because they say, oh, they don't know how to do it, they don't know what to do, and all of that. And help is available as long as you keep, following your inner guidance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to remember that it's not the light warrior energy. It's not, I was just talking to somebody, I have a client who's in the military, and that light warrior energy, it's not pushing through something and getting to the other side. The warrior is the hero's journey, where the soul becomes crystallized, you become a whole person. So the resiliency that you want is coming through something that has made you whole versus pushing through something that has diminished your energy.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because what happens is you discover strengths, you discover vitality, you discover gifts and skills and talents you didn't even know you had, right? These things just blossom when you're, owning what you've been handed. You're doing battle with your usually your inner demons. That's what master yogis say. It's the inner demons, such as doubt and self-criticism, self-negation, all of those things. You're kind of doing battle with that, and then you're coming out the other side and you're realizing that you're bringing more light into your beingness, and you're able to share from a place that has authenticity and vulnerability. And at the same time, you're saying that you don't. It's not the mind that knows anything. The mind doesn't figure it out, but it's trusting the supreme self to show you the way and to guide you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. Well, I want to share just a sneak of where we're headed, because we're going to come back on in just a month, just a few weeks, and we're going to do a 3-part series on the gifts that come from resilience. And we're going to talk about how challenges can forge the inner strength, which is what we're starting to talk about today already. We're going to talk about what resilience can teach us. There's wisdom inside of resilience. And we're also going to talk about how to thrive beyond the hardships. And so we're really going to talk about how to cultivate joy and gratitude, and to come into a space of that happy, joyful space. This is my favorite pillow from Kid Robot, where I work.
Oh, I love that.
But it's my happy egg. And my happy egg is the joy that comes from all of the challenges that we face. Facing adversity is what creates the opportunities for us to do the shadow work. A lot of people say, well, where do I start with shadow work? And I think, well, you start with the adversities you're experiencing and you start looking at those. And I do want to plug your book, Julie, because you have such a beautiful book. Actually 5, right? 5 books?
6, actually.
6 books.
Yes.
Oh, I can't keep track. And and so if you're looking for support with the shadow, Julie is a go-to, absolutely. So please check out her website, which is juliehoyle.org, and dive in, because I think once you start to do that, then you start to unravel a lot of things. And I know that Julie also does one-on-one coaching to support as well. And I just am grateful for you. I mean, honestly, you've taught me so much about all of that. I mean, I think I had a natural drive to understand myself, and still do. And those tools have become a huge part of my own practice, my own life. So I'm really grateful for you, Julie.
Thank you. And one of the things I do want to say about shadow work is it can be intimidating. It can be terrifying, because you're essentially peeling back the layers and you're looking at the parts of you that you would rather not show to the world. We've been taught to present, the best parts of ourselves. So we're taught very early to repress the things that we think other people won't like. But in doing that, what we're repressing is our own creativity and our creative energy. So when you actually start looking at and having conversations with those parts of yourself that you've repressed, you're releasing this incredible creative potential that starts to blossom and starts to grow and expand. And it really kind of creates this propulsion in you that will kind of propel you along these different pathways and inspire you to do things you would never have dreamed you would do, as in writing books, or creating websites, or studying yoga, or becoming a meditation teacher, whatever it is. I've so many stories. I've heard so many stories from clients who've undertaken shadow work, and in a relatively short space of time, they've started to revisit the things that they'd wanted to do as a child and had kind of stuffed away, and suddenly looking at everything in a different light. So, and I know what that means, Lisa, because that's certainly your story too. But I did want to say that it's really the most magical process. Really makes such a difference.
It does. It is. It's life-changing. And yeah, so we're going to move into the gifts. And again, I'm just so grateful for you. And if you are interested in working with me, my website's BuddhistBiohacker.com. Or you can subscribe on here on the Buddhist Biohacker channel. And I'd love to have you here as well. And we will see you all very soon. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody in our community who's back watching us and connected in. We appreciate you as well. Thank you again, Julie.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful, as always, Lisa.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone.